fantasy football season is so close, and now's the time to make sure your rosters are as good as possible. These are the 6 best picks you will not regret drafting. Beginning with the Jaguars' second-year running back, Travis Etienne, who to end the preseason, you don't see his name here with these other running backs because he rested. He was not playing in the last preseason game. He rested with the starters as a key piece in the offense. Now, Williams started and was the main back in weeks 1 and weeks 2 of the preseason. And for example, in week 1 when he started, he played 22 snaps, as you can see right here. And these 22 snaps, just 22, led to 12 opportunities, 9 carries and 3 targets on just 22 snaps. And he actually played 20 straight snaps at one point, showing that he's a true workhorse back. This usage is elite. And Etienne ran a route on 83% of Lawrence's preseason dropbacks. Now, for example, this man right here, Alvin Kamara, elite running back from the New Orleans Saints, he led the NFL last year with just a 67% rate. 83% rate for Etienne, way higher than this in the preseason, means, yeah, he's going to see a lot of targets this year. And one more thing. It's important to remember that Etienne played with Trevor Lawrence in college at Clemson. They have a built-in connection, and not just any type of connection, because Travis Etienne caught over 35 balls his final 2 years at Clemson from Mr. Trevor Lawrence, including 48 his final year, which led the entire ACC, the entire league in college football. The translation here is simply put that Trevor Lawrence trusts this man in the passing game. So prioritize Etienne and then take the best value wide receiver in fantasy football. And that man's name is George Pickens, who is already the wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh, starting in 2 wide receiver sets over Chase Claypool, even when Claypool was healthier earlier this camp. And now Pickens has played 88% of the preseason snaps with the starters. In week 3, this past week, he ended up playing 30 snaps, led the team. Deante Johnson got hurt. He ran 20 routes. And then last week with the starters, he played 21 snaps ahead of Chase Claypool, who only played 16 in this game, and he ran 17 routes, which was all of the routes you could run except for one. But it gets even better for George Pickens. Unfortunately, Deante Johnson injured his shoulder in the final preseason game. It's not thought to be a massive injury, but it's an AC joint sprain, might take a couple weeks to get back up and running. And as Brooke points out here, Chase Claypool has already been dealing with a shoulder injury that actually kept him out the final preseason game. So the only healthy receiver who's a starter on the Steelers roster is rookie George Pickens. Now here's why you should be excited. Pittsburgh lost 25% of their targets from last year, mainly coming from Juju Smith-Schuster and James Washington, over 160 targets they have to replace from last year. And George Pickens is likely the most talented wide receiver that's coming out as a rookie this year. Yes, he went in the second round, but he would have been likely a top 15 pick if it wasn't for an ACL tear and some quote-unquote personality concerns with George Pickens. But right now in camp, he's dominating, he's healthy, and his personality is fine. It's fine, people. And let me remind you, beautiful people, as a 19-year-old, 19, not 20, not 21, 19-year-old true freshman, George Pickens in the SEC, the toughest place to be playing, toughest conference, over 700 yards and 8 touchdowns. And now, obviously, you can see in 2021, only 4 games played, 5 catches because of that ACL tear earlier in the year. So draft Pickens, who's now fully healthy, and then secure this elite running back. And that man's name is Alvin Kamara, who currently goes in the second round of drafts, the 15th overall player according to Fantasy Pros ADP, average draft position, as the running back 9. Now, this is interesting because if you go through Alvin Kamara's entire career, the worst he's ever finished is the running back 8. And then outside of that, he's been top 5 every single year of his career. He is fantastic. So here's what you need to know. Kamara dropped in drafts due to a potential suspension he's having for battery charges. But as you can see on Twitter right here, Catherine is saying that his court date has been pushed back to September 29th. This is the 3rd time it's been pushed back, so it might even get pushed back more. But not only that, he's going to plea not guilty, meaning that this is just the beginning of it. This is going to go on for months and months, and what that means is he's highly unlikely to be suspended this year. And this is important information for fantasy managers to have. Now check this out. We mentioned earlier how he led all running backs in route participation last year, and he also led all running backs with over a 20% target share. This is really good for a wide receiver, let alone a running back. Plus, if you look at the running backs in the NFL who had the best red zone opportunity share, meaning how much they were on the field compared to other running backs in their backfield, only Jonathan Taylor saw a higher red zone opportunity share than Alvin Kamara last year. And the reason for that is there wasn't really any great running backs behind him last year, and there's not this year either. There's absolutely zero competition here. You get Mark Ingram, who finished 52nd in running back efficiency last year, and his best years are by far behind him. You have Tony Jones, who is not great, 123rd in running back efficiency last year. And then there's Dwayne Washington, who's likely to make the team, be the RB4. He's only seen 20 rushing attempts since 2018. These guys are non-factors. Now be sure to keep an eye on the news here in the legal situations. As of like 2 weeks ago, there was more of an aggressive push by the defendant to potentially get this into court. But as of today, September 29th is the assigned date for starting the trial. So for fantasy purposes, this risk is worth the reward here. So take Alvin Kamara and then get this quarterback who is the best pick in fantasy. And that best pick means relative to the quarterback position, and that's Jalen Hurts. Hurts, who has the ability to finish first overall at the position. However, Hurts currently goes as the 61st overall player, meaning that in 12-team leagues, he goes in the beginning of the 6th round. Now get this. Hurts actually goes 3 rounds later and almost 30 picks later than Patrick Mahomes. Even though last year in fantasy, Mahomes averaged 22 points per game and Hurts averaged 21.4 points per game. These guys were neck and neck. Mahomes finished 5th and 6th was Hurts. These guys were basically the same player last year. And one more thing. Hurts has something that Mahomes doesn't. He has the elite mobile upside. He ended up finishing 2nd in red zone carries, but he was 1st in red zone carries per game, and then he ended up actually finishing 1st in overall carries and rushing yards per game. And this all led to Jalen Hurts finishing as the #1 fantasy point per dropback quarterback, similar to when Lamar Jackson did that his MVP season. And when you lead the NFL in fantasy points per dropback, you average a top 5 finish the following year. So secure Hurts and then grab the ultimate late round tight end. And I am being serious here, people. Look at this man, Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper last year was a casualty of having to play with Baker Mayfield, who was playing through a gruesome shoulder injury. But before last year, he finished as a top 20 quarterback the previous 4 years, dating back to his rookie season. And now you can get him as cheap as he's ever gone in drafts. Because Hooper often goes undrafted in most leagues as the 28th tight end off the board. This is a mistake. I'd be taking him in the last round of your draft as your starting tight end. And here's why. Simply put, he might be Ryan Tannehill's #1 option this year. He just might be. Because since 2019, Ryan Tannehill targets tight ends 25% of the time, which is the 4th highest rate in the NFL. He loves the security blanket in the tight end. But this isn't the only reason you want Hooper. Tight ends rely on volume, and he doesn't have a ton of competition. There's not a true #1 wide receiver in Tennessee. You have Robert Woods, who's 30 years old, coming off of a torn ACL. You have Kyle Phillips, who is tearing up training camp, but he's a slot wide receiver, a 5th-round wide receiver. There's Nick Westbrook, who has 41 career NFL receptions, and then Treylon Burks, who was their 1st-round pick. He should be a solid player, but right now, he's a backup. And you might be saying, no, Burks is not a backup. No, yeah, as of right now, he's behind Nick Westbrook on the depth chart and in the preseason games. So as you can see, I have Austin Hooper as a 183rd overall player. I'm 57 spots ahead of ADP, meaning that I think he should go 5 or 6 rounds higher than he does. Don't take him that much earlier. Just get him late and benefit from the ultimate value in Austin Hooper. Now, if you would like to dominate your draft and use my top 200 rankings, my player rankings throughout the season, my tiers, my wants and avoids list, and a whole lot more, including a $20 Amazon gift card, then click the link in the description to follow the 2 simple steps to acquire your supreme cheat sheet. And if for any reason at all you don't like the cheat sheet, I'll refund your minimum deposit of $10, and you can keep the cheat sheet and the $20 gift card. Yes, risk-free. And then you get the projections and player rankings all season long. I want to make this as risk-free as possible for you, so if you'd like to join the thousands of people using my material, click the link in the description to learn more. So Austin Hooper is the ultimate late-round tight end, and now this next wide receiver might be the best overall pick in fantasy. And that would be Michael Pittman, who last year was 3rd overall versus man coverage, which translates to he knows how to get open often. Now, despite this, he finished outside the top 20 wide receivers in fantasy last year. And you might be wondering, how can this be possible? 2 words, Carson Wentz, who last year ended up finishing 28th in true completion percentage, which led to about 24% of Michael Pittman's targets being deemed not catchable. This is not good. And you could look at it this way. Pittman was great last year, but he had a bad quarterback. But now he gets Matt Ryan, who was top 10 in quarterback efficiency and accuracy just last year. So a guy's going to get open a lot of Michael Pittman, and now you add in an accurate quarterback. This means good things. Now check out just how good Pittman was last year. You can see my tweet right here. In 2021, Michael Pittman was top 20 in targets, wide receiver efficiency, red zone usage, yards after the catch, and beating man coverage. Basically every single thing that matters for fantasy football, he was top 20 in, and now he gets an accurate quarterback in Matt Ryan. So these have been the 6 best picks for fantasy football this year. But if you want to see the 7 players that will ruin your draft and you have to stay away from, then check out this video right here. And my guess is that the 5th player in that video surprises you. If you're not already, hit subscribe.